All right, everybody, here we are. Tuesday night Hangout presentation. We are here with Geno and Vinny. Geno from the Central City Beltline and Vinny from BNFF 69 591. I told myself I wasn't going to mess it up just like Bill did over the live show, but what the heck, I got to, join the Joneses, I guess. So anyways, we're going to do a presentation. Tonight's show is a follow-up of the last Saturday's live show on structures. Vinny's going to do some scratch build techniques. Geno's going to do a presentation on how he does his billboards. And so we'll go ahead and get started. I think Geno's going to start off first, and then we'll go into Vinny's presentation. But anyways, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Geno, and he can go ahead and start tonight's presentation. And just to let everybody know, if you guys want to know the schedule, go to YouTube modelbuilders.com, and the schedule is there. Just go into the Hangout presentation, and you'll see the schedule. And I'll have the schedule updated. There's going to be some new presentations in the next couple of weeks. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to Geno.
All right, guys. There's been a lot of inquiries about these little billboards that I did. Now these are just totally scratch built. You can see this one here. It's just a single-sided L tubing.
You sound exact. All right, guys, with your pauses and everything.
Here's the other one. It's kind of patterned after an older model. It's just a pole frame with the picture up there. These are real simple to do. It's all it is just styrene tubing and a styrene sheet, and then you just print your picture out on your computer. And what I use is evergreen scale models, odds, and end pieces. It comes with a bunch of assorted size tubings and sheets. The part number is 9002, 9002. And it's got everything you'll need to put these things together. But on the one with the hat store, all it is a single tube and a smaller. I don't have the dimensions on here. They're not labeled on the package. But just drill you a hole in this side right here. Stick you a smaller tube in. Glue your sheet. Cut it to measure. You can make them bigger or smaller. And I just took some more tubing, drilled into the front, and made a little walkway. Not too much detail to it. I still got to weather it up. I never did weather it. But for, just to be in the background, it'll pass my standards. I know there's some pretty expensive kits that you can get out there now. But this, like I said, this works for me. And all I've got in the bottom is just a wood screw that's stuck in the bottom, and you can just stick it down in your layout. And on the other one here, it's made out of the same smaller tubing. It's just 4 tubes glued together on the back of the sheet, and I've got some of the smaller tubing run across the front for bracing, and that's it. Real simple, real easy to do. And like I said, I've had good results from these that I've done. And I got Bill on this one, got his picture, and he's running for mayor of Central City. So y'all vote for Bill.
So now on the facial of that, is that something you just put on your printer and printed it out?
Yeah, I used Paint, Microsoft Paint, and put the picture in and just laid it out the sign. And did the same thing with Mike. So I just get you a text box and put your color and your text in, and then you can add the picture to it.
So that's just the normal Paint software that comes with your computer when you Oh, that's simple. That's real simple.
Yeah, I mean, they're easy. I mean, you can make different designs. You just make your own designs, or you can copy one. You can download one from the internet and just insert that picture on it, and you'll be good to go.
Now your little walkway that you got there, is that like corrugated?
No, this is just plain styrene.
Oh, okay.
You could use corrugated and make it a little more detailed. You could put the little railings up top if you could, if you wanted to. But I said this is just going to be in the background on my layout, and like I said it just works good for me.
Now, you can make any of the, because I know that some of the billboards that you see along the actual roads, they got ladders that have been locked off. Do you do ladders too?
I have not yet. Now that would be something that you could add as an extra detail if it was going to be in the foreground.
Very cool. Yeah, those are really simple to do, aren't they?
They are. They're very simple. And I said the package of stuff was, I think it was $7 altogether, and there's enough in it. You can make 10, 15 billboards out of this stuff here.
Yeah.
Is that a kit you bought there, Geno?
It is. It's just a package of odds and ends that Evergreen puts out.
Oh yeah, it's got all kinds of stuff in it.
Yeah, it's got.
And I'm just seeing a couple of Grant line lights over that too that would make that really pop.
You could add lights to it.
So could you actually put lighted lights above those? I mean.
Yeah, you could run your you could run your wires up your tubing in the back and have your lights coming out. The tubes are hollow.
Yeah. So if you did see both sides of it, you could easily run it down through there, and those little Grant line shades, 2 or 3 of those across the top, and it would really be incredible.
Yeah. So Geno, we got Model Man Mike asking here. It says, I couldn't help notice the good that the hat sign looks.
I had to come up with something real quick, and this is what I come up with. I didn't have a picture of me in a cowboy hat, so I had to go with him.
Yeah, the picture's a little on the blurry side, but who cares? We all know what he looks like.
Yeah, you get the idea. People look at the hat more than the face anyway. So.
Yeah, blurry's not bad in Mike's case, anyways.
Well, that's right.
Yeah, we got during the live show, I was spamming the guys right before the show started, and so Bill comes on tonight and he says, wait a minute here, this isn't the live show, where's the big Bill? They got to get me back somehow, right,
That's right. But I said, these are simple to do, guys. I mean, it's just one little thing, a little added detail that you can add to your layout that'll really stand out and make it pop.
Did you replicate some pictures you found of a prototype or of a certain era? Because I'm thinking that I could basically do the same thing out of wood and it'd be appropriate for more 50s style. I love it, the structure you've built.
Are you familiar with the Magnolia route layout with Powers?
Yeah, I think so.
Now you can go under. He's got one like this. It's built on the wood frame, and he's got a how-to directions on his site. But he used just balsa wood. I think it's what he used for his. But yeah, you can backdate it, and it look awesome.
Absolutely, and build it to the same structure that you built there with the
with wood. Yeah, with wood instead of metal poles.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, in that exact format is what I see pictures of from my era. Is exactly the crosses, a couple crosses at the bottom.
Yeah, I would say that was in the early years, and then the other one with the single pole is like what you would see today.
Yeah, a little more modern to it.
Yeah.
And I said you do what, dude?
Go ahead, Geno.
I said, and you can get as detailed with it as you want to. I said you can add the railings and the ladders and lights, and at some point I'll probably go back and add lights to these. But for now, for what I was needing them for, just to stand up in the background, blend in, work out real good.
So, what about weathering? Have you done any weathering on them yet? I mean, have you thought about that?
I have not, and I intend to come back with some rusting, with some acrylic paint, some chalk, kind of rust the poles a little bit. I just have not done it yet.
Yeah, they look very realistic to me. I mean, when I saw them on your layout, I was just flabbergasted.
Well, thank you. Thanks, sir.
And is the print just paper? So could you roll up the edge a touch? Sometimes I've seen out in the wild, I've seen, the edges rolled a little bit on some.
Mm-hmm.
So from a weathering perspective, if it's just regular paper, not cardstock.
No, it's just regular typing paper, and just a thin layer of white glue on the back. You could come back and make little wrinkles in it, or slice it and roll it down a little bit for weather effect as well.
Beautiful.
So I wonder how you could, what am I looking for here? When you want to make something that's the present day, I know that you did Mike one with the hat. So could you actually go online and pull different pictures off the internet and actually do something, present that, as today?
Of course, yeah. You can just Google modern billboards. There's an endless amount of pictures of billboards that you just copy and paste to find.
Okay. Huh.
When using Google image search, you could even specify resolution. So you made sure you had a high enough resolution for if it was going to be adjacent to the front of the layout. And if you were looking for, say, 16 by 9 or some particular format, with Google image search, you could even specify that criteria. And I bet you could find thousands, tens.
Oh, yeah. It's endless possibility.
I'd like to see on your next layout, Geno, I'd like to see you have a billboard with a couple, because when they get up there, because I had a grandmother that had a boyfriend that's what he did for a living. He went up there and changed the pictures on the billboard, and he said it was a process because it was like you took laminated pictures and you glued them up there. It wasn't really a glue, but that would be cool to see a couple guys up there redoing the billboard for the next issue.
Woodland Singers, they have a set like that.
Do they really?
They do for billboards. And a lot of and if you want to go another step modern, a lot of these modern billboards that you see along the interstate now are wrapped. It's just a vinyl sheet, and you could make your print and wrap it around the back and tie it in like some of them are, and just whatever area you wanted to model.
Huh. Yeah. The next billboard we should see you do is changing the old mic. Take the hat off, the new mic being bald or something.
We could do that. That would not be a problem.
He went from selling hats, into selling Bosley,
Bosley for men. There we go. I'm sure I will come up with something creative for him.
Yeah, when I saw those on your layout, that was like, that's awesome. You couldn't have picked the better guys to put up there,
Well, it's people that I enjoy watching on YouTube, and it's just a way to say thanks for all the work they put into it.
Yeah. Bill did ask, Geno, did you ever think of a digital billboard? That is a good question. That would be really cool to do put a cell phone up there or something and make it a digital billboard,
Well, you can get a 5 or a 7-inch little LCD screen for about $30 and power it with a Raspberry Pi for $25. And for $60, I thought about doing that for a drive-in theater. And for $60, you could have a screen.
Yeah,
that'd be a good idea right there.
That's like the drive-in theaters. I've seen layouts where they actually have a drive-in theater and they've taken a small LCD screen and made that the screen, and they're actually playing a movie.
Walther's has come out with a drive-in kit now that 7-inch tablet insert.
Oh, really?
It's built
Yeah,
for
that
it.
seemed like too big of an investment to spend a couple $100 on it when you can buy a screen. Now I get why Walters is doing that because just anybody can go buy a cheap 7-inch tablet and slip it in there. But for guys who like to scratch this stuff, you can buy those screens just so doggone cheap. And a Raspberry Pi fills all kinds of niches anyway, since you can run JMRI on it, all kinds of other stuff. Those are perfect computers to have. I mean, I've got about 5 or 6 of those, and I'm gonna use them for all kinds of stuff right now.
So once again, Big Bill asked, "Hey Geno, who is the mayor there?"
Bill Graham.
Yeah.
Big Bill.
So now, how long is his term? 2 years? Or
Well,
just...
right now, he's only got probably maybe 3 months left on this one before the layout's gone. No, he'll have to run for election. When he gets the new layout up, he's going to have to run again.
Were their terms set by fast clock or not? So.
Well, yeah, fast clock, yeah. We may have to put Vinny on the council. I don't know.
We got a question here from Northwest Rails. Hey Geno, aren't you the one who built the Anyhow Hobbies?
Yes.
Yeah, I like that one hobby store where you had Vinny's logo out on the side of the street. Was that?
Yeah, that's where it's Anyhow Custom Hobbies.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. If you watch Vinny long enough, you'll count how many times he says anyhow in his videos. And that's my
There
little
was a
tribute.
guy, Shane, the Breakman 17, did a video on that a couple of months ago. The Anyhow counter. And he asked to borrow one of my videos, and he put my video up, and he had a counter going up, and he had it counting each time I said anyhow. Well, anyhow, in that video, I said it 32 times.
Yeah, that was the Anyhow Custom Hobbies is my little tribute to Vinny. So, but yeah, that's where that comes from. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hey, we got another one from Bill. This is a pretty good question. Gentlemen, do you plan on structures, or is it free form thinking for your layouts?
Well, that all depends on what kind of layout you're going to have. You're going to have a freelance layout, then you could build the buildings according to the layout. But mine, since it's a prototype, I have to think of the buildings I have to put and where they're going to go.
Mine too. I have pictures, and I'm trying to replicate exact pictures, which means I pretty much scratch build everything. So.
Right. And that's the direction I'm going in as well as mine. I'm going to be modeling part of Birmingham over there, and which a lot of it's gone now. It's been revitalized into a baseball park. But I've got pictures of some, and then there's going to be some that I'm just going to have to kind of use some modeler's license and just kind of get the feel.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be as close to prototype as I can.
Well, and what I find even doing prototype even is actually a lot of times more. Actually, I absolutely think it's more difficult to replicate a prototype because a lot of times buildings are not photographed from the railhead. They're photographed from streets that may not be. So you have to accept a little bit of modeler's license, or your OCD would drive you crazy trying to replicate exactly because the information's not there.
Correct. Correct.
And also, a lot of us run across the situation where we have a lack of room, so we have to do the old selective compression deal.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there's never enough room.
Exactly.
Probably the compression part is my worst enemy.
So,
I agree.
on your new layout that you're going to build, is it going to be like the one that you got now is point to point? Is your new layout going to be around a full room, or what is your plans?
It's going to be around a full room where I can have a continuous run, but I'm going to have if it comes out like I've got it up here, I haven't got it on paper yet, but each end will go into like a 2-track staging yard where I can pull a train in, and it'll be in a separate divided room. It will pass through the wall, and then I can build trains and send them out and either go point to point or just go out and have a continuous run if I just want to watch train trip.
Yeah. Yeah, see, that's how my layout is. It's a continuous run, but it's point to point from my lower deck to my upper deck. So if I want to transfer cars from the 2 staging yards, I can. And then my upper deck, I'll have a lot of switching from that yard to all the industries from my upper deck, and then the same thing for my lower deck. And but if I want to just go in there tonight and just run trains, I can throw in a passenger train and let it run the whole loop, and then do switching or transferring cars, as that's running around, and I can just any of the yeah. So I mean, basically my layout is only big enough for 2 guys, and just because of the area that it's in, everybody says it's a big layout, and I'm like, well, if you see it in person, it really isn't that big for HO scale, anyways, But so.
And I wanted mine to be both that way. If I want to have an operating section, I can actually send trains out, let them go around, and then they'll go off to some other destination off the layout. But if I'm in the shop, going to be working and building a structure or whatever, and just want to watch trains running while I'm doing that, I want to be able to do that as well.
Yep.
Well, I think you need to design your layout to be able to be the operator, but also get to be a rail fan too. I mean, you need to kind of take both approaches. I think you'd get burnt out with either one. If you just build a big loop, you'd be tired of that in no time. And if you build a layout that you have to interactively do every single step, it's going to be too much work for all the time. So you have to balance.
A+, Andy, A+. That's the same way I feel.
Very much agree.
My layout, and when I sit in my chair, is eye level, and I can do a lot of rail fanning once all my scenery's done, and I can just set right there eye level and see, the perspective of what the layout looks like and all that. Or I can stand up and do switching. If I feel like doing switching one day, then that's what I'll do, And,
well, DCC goes a long way to give us kind of the best of both worlds. But the selective compression that Vinny mentions comes back to bite us in that you just cannot build a long enough main line that you can just turn a train on and forget about it for very long. It's going to get to the other end of the layout on a huge layout in 6, 8, 10 minutes. So,
I got a question. One guy, Northwest Rail Fans, he asked, those evergreen odd and ends bags are great. Now, is that, Geno, is that the do you use evergreen for most of your billboard stuff, or do you kind of,
I do. Now, for some of my bigger projects, I use the for sale signs, it just depends on what it is. Now, there's enough that came in this kit here of odds and ends where you could build probably, I said, 10, 15 billboards out of this one kit.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to build like 5 or 6 for your layout, that kit, you'd have plenty to do.
Yeah, because I wasn't aware that there actually is an odd and ends. So the odd and ends is different pieces in it, like tubing and
yeah, it comes with, I said, there's all various size tubing. Then it comes with some of the black styrene as well as the white. And there's square tubing in it. Round tubing. There's corrugated pieces. So I said it's just a montage of all different. They're small cuts, but I said I got both of those out of it, and I said I could probably build 7 or 8 more. So.
Yeah. Because I know that I've seen the evergreen, like specific square tubing, round tubing, or flat styrene in brick form, or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And I guess
you run into the problem.
Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, you always run into the problem, just like being a plumber, is you have to have all these thousands of parts, and having that bag just fills so many little niches that you don't think enough of to buy that one piece.
Right. And that's you could buy 2 or 3 of them and have an assortment of different sizes in your scrap box or whatever. And these are they're probably end cut pieces, is what I imagine they are, and they just bag them up and sell them as odd and ends, which works out good.
Yeah. Huh. Very, very cool. Now, I don't see any other questions about the billboards. So maybe we'll go ahead and go over to Vinny and see what he's got on some scratch build. And Geno, you can jump in on there when Vinny's doing some scratch build. Just to let everybody know, Vinny does, I would say, 100% or 90-something% of his layout is mostly scratch build. And if you guys have seen some of his videos, he has been doing some roll-up doors that is just phenomenal. I mean, I didn't think there was anything that I watched the video. I don't know if Vinny saw it, but I watched the video on Facebook the other day that a guy did a roll-up door that he used a little knob to put the door up and down, and I thought that I was, as soon as I saw that, I was thinking of you, Vinny.
You have not seen his latest video. He actually has a tortoise machine working the door.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
And I'm hoping that my client doesn't see that, because there's no way I'm going to do that.
So, Vinny, you got the floor. You know, if you want to go ahead and show us some of your techniques and tools of the trade to doing some scratch build. I know that a lot of these guys are really interested in, you know, some of the things that you use.
All right. Well, what I'm going to go over tonight will be the tools that I use, the materials I use. I'm actually going to be doing a scratch build for a truck repair center for my layout. I'm going to show you all the materials I used, and we'll carry on from there. So we'll get down to the workbench, and I'll show you the tools first. So be gentle with the camera. All right, can you guys see all of that?
Sure can.
Okay, we're going to start off with, and this is probably one of the most important tools that I have in my arsenal right now. It's the Northwest Short Lines chopper, and it comes with these two adapters where you can have a 60-degree, a 30-degree, or a 45-degree angle. Very important when you got to cut multiple parts of the same size. This is another important tool, a miter. I don't know if you guys are seeing this. And then we got various files, pin vise, drill bits, C-clamps, cutting utensils, tweezers, various squares, various steel edge rulers that I use to make my cuts. We also have N scale rule, and since I've been doing so many bills, I also got myself an HO scale rule. We're going to need an eraser and a writing utensil. We're also going to have different types of glue. We're going to have some CA cement. This is the slow one. It gives you a little bit more time to work with the material. And for most of my bills, I use this Model Masters glue for styrene. Also, you're going to need some masking tape, various size masking tape. And that's it for the tool. Now I'll bring you over to all the I'll show you what I use these C-clamps for too. It's very helpful for me, and it might be helpful for some of you guys. So I'll put those on the side. Let me move this out of the way.
Hey, Vinny, before you move that, Ben?
Yeah?
That little chopping board there that the very first thing you showed, is that an N scale type chop board, or does that work good for HO as well?
No, it'll work good for HO.
Don't they make a couple sizes of that as well?
Is that now that blade on there, that it's only the width there, or is that the red on the, no, not that, the very first one, the chopper, yeah, that board there. That blade, is that, it doesn't look very long if you want to cut, like, say, a 4-inch long piece.
No, you cannot do a 4-inch long piece. It's a single edge razor blade is what it is. And so you have the width of the razor blade. I've cut some styrene up to about 1 inch with that, but I'd rather use, if I was going to cut, I'd rather use my my miter.
So that board's more or less just for cutting small square stock.
Yeah, like, you know, if you need multiple pieces of, you know, something for like support beams or whatever, and you need a lot of them.
Gotcha. Okay.
Just chop them up real quick, and it makes it real easy.
Gotcha now. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, no problem. All right, next, I'll give you a small demonstration what I use those C-clamps for. If you guys have been watching me for the past year or so, I've been having some problems with my hands, and so my fingers are not very strong as they used to be when I was younger. So what I do, let me try and get this down here a bit. I take the sheet that I'm going to cut, for instance, let's say this piece right here, mark off where my cut's going to be, and I take my steel ruler and I'll place it on here, and then what I do is I take my C-clamp and I clamp it down to my bench on both sides, and then once you have that all clamped down nice and tight, just take your knife and just score it a few times, and once you get through a couple of times you can take the clamps off and just snap it, and it'll be a perfect cut. Alright, let me get this out of the way. What I'm going to show you guys now is the material I'm going to be using for the build that I'm going to show you guys. These are all evergreen products, as you can see. I think by now I should have stock in this company. The windows I'm going to be using are these Tiki Group. One is a 40-pane engine house windows, and the other is just like a 12-pane window assortment, also from Tiki Groups.
Now the windows that you use is that an evergreen product?
No, that's a Tiki Group.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now, while we're on the subject of windows, I found so far that there's two types of windows that we can use. There's these types that I'm going to use on my build, which all you need to do is cut the hole out the size of the window and slide the window into the plastic. But you also have these other type of windows, and I don't know if you guys are really going to be able to see this. I'll put it back here in the light. No. But anyhow, there's a ridge on these guys right here. So when you cut out your window hole, make sure you cut it out to the size of the ridge, not to the outside of the frame. Otherwise, your hole will be way too big. And what I did here, for you guys that have not done any scratch building, the first scratch build you do is probably going to cost you a bunch of money. So what I did was, all these materials that are here, I listed on my sheet, okay, and how much they cost. But what I do was, for the ones that have multi-pieces in the bag, such as the strips or the angles or tubing or whatever, is I divide that by the amount and then times it by the amount of pieces I'm going to use. So initially, all of these parts would cost you about 41 bucks, but the actual build will cost you $27, and you'll have extra stuff left over for a future build. Now, like I said, we're going to start doing a build. I'm not going to be able to finish it tonight, but this is N scale, of course, guys. And this is going to be a truck repair center or truck and heavy equipment repair center. I have it laid out on the black styrene the way you would save the most material or not waste as much material. So you planning on your styrene sheet is very important, so you don't waste a lot of material and you'll save money by that way. As you can see, all my doors are cut out. Like I said, I'm not ready to do this because I still have to cut the window openings out and more doors and stuff. And if you're wondering what this black stripe is, all my Vinny built structures get a stripe at the top of the building if it's not a prototypical building. I did not have masking tape 1/16 of an inch, so I'm using actually pinstriping here. And what I do when I paint this, that'll stay on there, and then when I'm ready, after it's painted, I'll peel that off and I'll have a white stripe there, or I can put another color tape in there if I want to.
So the black stripe is actually tape?
Yes, it's tape.
Oh, okay.
It's pinstriping from RC Shop, as a matter of fact. But yeah, so what I intend to do now is to basically show you what how I'm gonna put this together. Let's see here. 1 second, guys. For my supports, I use the number 175 and the 188 styrene strips. The 175s are 100 by 100 size, and what I do with those is I use those on my corners, and I usually cut them a bit shorter than the actual roof line, so if you're going to have a recessed roof, you'll be able to recess it down to those supports. And on the others, I use the 188, which is a lot more stout, and what I do is I run those at the bottom of the building to secure it to my foundation. Everything has been cut out, like I said, but I'm not ready to actually put this together yet. We might do another session on this. I'm not quite sure yet. Anyhow, we're going to get the thickest piece of plastic here is 40 thousandths, and I'm going to be using this for my base, and it'll get painted either concrete or aged concrete, or now that I found out you guys are using that khaki color, camo colors, I might try that also. What I usually do is I usually leave a 1/2 inch reveal around the entire building, and then when you set it down your layout, you could bring your scenery right up to the base, and it'll look good. One thing I want to get straight during the live show, I kind of hastily answered a question to somebody, and I don't remember who the question was from. They asked, what size styrene do you use to make buildings?
That was me.
Who was that?
Jim in Michigan.
Okay, Jim. And I kind of hastily went ahead and answered that question without really thinking about it. Depending on the size of the building will depend on the size of the styrene you're going to use. For instance, this building that I'm doing right now is only 15 thousandths. And you can see how flimsy it is. But when I start putting the styrene strips inside the building, it'll strengthen everything up. So basically, whatever size building you're going to use, you want as much rigidity as you can get for the build. Especially if it's pretty tall, like the one I'm doing for Shane right now. His building is 9 inches tall, and he's going to have a sway at the top of the building. And I told him that, and he doesn't want me to build it the way I think it should be built. Anyhow, any questions on this, I'd be glad to answer it. So we'll start from there.
There is one from Sven. He says, have you ever tried the Lance Hinham method of building structures using photos of the actual prototype building on a solid styrene core?
On a solid, what do you mean by solid styrene core?
I'm familiar with that technique. It's what they're talking about is building the actual framework of the structure with styrene, and then using pictures of the actual building that's glued to the styrene on the front.
Oh, okay.
And he uses a Photoshop program for that. It's pretty neat the way he does it.
So,
most of the buildings that are on my layout are prototypical as per what I see, because I have the opportunity to actually go to these buildings because I'm doing the subdivision that's here in town in Phoenix. So I have the opportunity to go down there and actually check the buildings out and take pictures and get sizes and this and that. You know, what kind of material the buildings are made out of. Most of the stuff here in Phoenix is either corrugated or it's tip up, one or the other. You know, because Phoenix has grown quite a bit in the past 15 or 20 years, and everything that's been built since then has been with tip ups or corrugated metal.
So Vinny or Geno, with whoever, so what he's talking about on the solid styrene core is that like a skeleton, and then you stick the styrene on the outside of it?
Well, it's like you build a box. Like say if you've got a square building, you build the box out of styrene, and then what he does is he layers multiple photos, glues it to the styrene. He'll put a base picture of the building. Then he'll print out another picture and cut out the windows and put it on top of that. And then he will cut out, like, if you've got any extruded deco work of the building, he'll cut that out and glue that. So it's actually multiple layered photos glued on flat styrene.
I see. Okay.
I forgot to mention one thing on the bills. Now, this is plain styrene that I'm using on both sides, but if you want to use like a metal siding or a clapboard siding or something to that effect, you need to remember, if you want to have a drive-through, because this building is going to have a drive-through doors, make sure you put the door that you want to have the drive-through on the opposite side of what you think it should be. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and tape this together and give you an idea of what this building is going to look like, and we'll see how that goes. So stay tuned. Let me get this tape together, and we'll see what happens. Any questions, go ahead, and I'll answer them as I work on this.
I know that you guys build a lot of the structures when you're doing scratch build. You guys build a lot of structures out of signs. I mean, and I imagine each sign, you know, like for sale signs and signs like that sort that you could buy at your local hardware store at Home Depot or whatever. Do those come in different thicknesses too as well?
The no parking signs and all of the smaller of their no parking signs, like you know, whatever the sign might be, those are like about 15 or 20 thousandths. But what I found is, you go and buy the handicap sign, it's a bigger sheet of plastic and it's also a heavier plastic.
So now, do you guys, of course you guys would put the writing on the inside, do you guys actually paint over that so you don't see it as well?
I do. I normally do. I try to put it on the inside, because most of the inside of my buildings are black anyway, where I can go back and light them later if I want to. But also, when you're getting your signs too, if you get the bigger ones like these, they tend to be a little more thicker than the smaller versions.
Yes, exactly. That's the ones I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I try to get the bigger ones if it's going to be like walls or stuff.
Yeah, because you could build quite a few buildings out of that, couldn't you?
Correct. Yeah. And it's the same stuff. It's just a whole lot cheaper.
Yeah, it's cheaper, and it is way thicker plastic, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I've gone and looked at our hobby store that we got here in the valley, and I couldn't believe the price of the, you know, for 1 or 2 pieces of styrene, like maybe 6 inches by 8 inches. I was like, wow.
Yeah, plastic is getting very spendy.
99 cents.
Plastic is getting very spendy, guys.
Yeah.
I can't believe I thought of that. That's incredible solution.
The one engine house that I did a few months ago, there was over $250 in material on that one build.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is the thickness of that styrene guys? Is that a 40, a 60? What's it relate to?
These here are about a 40.
Yeah, I think it's about a 40.
It's close. It's real close.
So,
and the smaller ones, a lot of the smaller versions that you get are thinner too.
Yeah, those are about 15 or 20 thousandths.
So the smaller the sign, the thinner it is. So and the bigger, the thicker.
Generally, yes.
Yeah, I would say that would be a good way to look at it.
And that makes sense too, because the bigger the sign, the more space it's got to, you know.
Well, it's got to be able to support itself too. So you know.
Yeah.
And you can buy a business open sign that's really thick, a small one with the chains on it. I've got one of those downstairs, and it's quite thick. I'm not sure how thick.
You guys, we got Log and Local asking here. Do you double up your material to make it rigid? That was a question I was going to ask, because I know that some of you guys will build structural, like a skeleton inside the layout, you know, I-beams and stuff like that.
Well, even though I use all the steel structures inside a building, I still use the, again, it depends on the size of the building.
Okay.
If it's going to be a huge build, I will use the 40,000s, and then I will do my steel work or structural work inside the building and attach it to the walls, which should make it a little bit more rigid. Again, depending on the size of the building.
And a lot of times, what I'll do, if depending on what I'm building, but the L&N station that I've got up here on the layout, I built the entire and then come back and wrapped it with some of the evergreen. And it adds to support too.
And you're working and listening to the show.
Out of
the Tuesday night topic show on structures.
All right, guys, this is basically what this building is going to look like. You can see I can get a semi in there, and there's plenty of room inside the building to get the entire vehicle inside the building. So that leaves room for toolboxes or whatever kind of equipment they need in the shop to take care of the repairs on stuff that comes into the shop. And then there'll also be a small office that I'll attach to one of the sides of the building, which is here.
That brings up another question, Log and Local. This might follow in, you were saying about putting the truck inside there, Vinny. Log and Local X, how may have you entered in this already, but how on a computer, how do you draw up the plans to get the dimensions and all that right, and how do you transfer those plans directly to your styrene?
Usually, I don't have any kind of a computer-aided drawing system, so I usually draw it by hand. And a building like this, I just guesstimate on how big it should be, but all the doors are all prototypical size. But as far as the structure, the main structure of the dimensions, length, width, and height is just guesswork on my part. Except for my prototypes. My prototypes, like I say, I take pictures of those, and if there's any freight cars parked alongside the building, that's how I get to know the length of the building.
What do you use for the doors on like that building that you're going to do there? I mean, do you gotta buy the styrene that's corrugated so it matches the door?
Well, what I use is different corrugated stuff. And what I do is I'll put that behind the doors, and either I can have them all the way closed or I can bring it up a bit and have them partially open or whatever. The corrugated is expensive stuff. I mean, one sheet of this costs about $6, and it's only a 6 by 12 inch sheet of plastic. And it's crazy. I mean, it's just crazy. But the one good thing about scratch building is, number one, it's going to be cheaper than buying the building if you can find a building that will fit your needs. And number two, you could say, I built that building. And you'll have the pride and the joy of actually seeing one of your builds either on your layout or someone else's layout.
Now, could you actually take one of the signs and turn that into corrugated? I mean, just cut slits down it? Or
you would be looking at a lot of work to do that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because what does the corrugated look like? I mean, does it look? Is it ripple effect or?
I don't know if you can see this. Get a good picture of it. Can you see that?
Yeah, kind of. So it's actually raised then.
Yeah, it's got little ridges in it, and you can get this in different sizes. Like you can get the rib on one side with the depth in another size. I mean, it's all depending on how you want your building to look.
Yeah, like Geno's got there. That really. So just cutting slits down a piece of plastic ain't gonna cut it.
Does that have a smooth back on it, or is it the same material on both?
It's smooth on it's smooth on one side. The build that I'm doing now for Shane, he has sent me all his material, which is all Plastruct material. And the doors that he sent me, that he wants me to use for his doors, are actually corrugated on both sides, which I thought was pretty cool.
And who's the manufacturer on that?
Plastruct.
Plaster.
Uh-huh. This is it right here.
Oh, that's actually not rigid though. It will flex real easy, won't it?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's how you get the roll up door to curve up.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I used on that one, like I said, he has sent me all the materials. So he sent me the channels and the H beams and square tubing and all that stuff, and all of it is plastruct.
So basically, if I asked you to do a roll up door and I say I want it in a drum style, so it actually rolls up, that's something you could do for me then, right, Vinny?
You know what I would tell you? They will roll. You can get them to roll, but the problem is by the time you get it rolled up, the 15 feet or whatever your scale, whatever scale door you're going to do, it's going to have a thing on there about yay big, on the canister on the top. So it wouldn't be very prototypical.
Yeah. Very nice.
If you had enough building height where you could hide it and you could just go straight up and straight down with a servo, that would be pretty easy versus rolling.
The thing is, the problem with that was this guy wanted his doors to be specific. He wanted the whole building to be specific. It is a prototype up in Wisconsin where he lives. Mm. I originally was going to do the doors to go straight up and down, but the problem with that was the one door that he's got is 5 inches tall. So that means I would have to make the building at least 10 inches tall and then allow for my reveal on top of the door for my roof section. So we were looking at a 12-inch tall building. And to me, aesthetically, just didn't look right to be 15 inches wide by 24 inches long by 12 inches high. It just didn't look right.
It wouldn't look prototypical.
It didn't look prototypical. So I actually chopped 3 inches off the top of the building to make it 9 inches tall.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, I know that's been a. I mean, how long have you been doing that now? 6 months or something like that?
At least.
Yeah.
At least. And the thing is, each door takes about 5 hours to do, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And
so now,
I have 2 more doors to do, and like I'm procrastinating on it to get those 2 doors done. And I said, you know what? I'll just get everything else done, and then I'll do those last 2 doors. Well, you know what? Everything else is done. So now I got to do the doors.
So now, is this going on like an O scale layout or something like that?
It's actually O scale is 1/48th. His building is B1/50th, which I believe in Europe is their O scale.
Oh, okay. Huh. So you're ready as soon as you're done with this one, you're ready to do another one.
When I finish with Shane's build, yeah.
Well, at least you have all the jigs and all that, and the nice thing is once it's on the guy's layout and he takes pictures of it and all that, Vinny can tap himself on the back and say, I built that.
and I won't do any more doors like that either.
I think you need to put operating doors on your little shop there, Vinny.
Yeah, right.
Now in scale, that would be incredible.
Yeah. Well, the one that you guys watched that Niels did, that is an N-scale building. But the thing that he has going for him is that there's only 1 door on that one wall, so that wall is pretty rigid, so he's able to put the motor in there to get it to work. The one I'm doing for Shane, it's got, first of all, it's like I said, 15 3/8 inches wide, and there's 3 doors there, so there's hardly any plastic for any kind of rigidity to put any kind of motor on there. And I kept telling him that we cannot put a motor on that because it's plastic, it's not steel, And he's saying, oh well, you can put the steel beams up and don't put any supports in the center of the trusses and all of this. And I said, Shane, when they build a real building, they have a footing that goes down into the ground, probably 4 feet, maybe 6 feet, and then they bolt the steel to that footing. I said, so yeah, they don't need to have any supports on the trusses that go across the building. So, you know, I try to make my clients happy if I can, you know, and try and do it the best I can for them. But I know that he is going to have problems with it because of the actual swaying part of the top of the building.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, something that's always difficult to remember when we're dealing with the models is we can scale a whole lot of things down, but gravity is 1-to-1.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
we're still fighting that. Yeah.
That's a good way to look at it right there.
Yep.
You can fake a lot of things, but gravity is difficult.
So, Vinny, I know that I've seen a couple of your builds where you had, like, inside cranes inside the buildings, you know, where you could lift off the top of the, you know, and you could see the detail inside. I mean, is that something that you would build after you build the walls, or do you build the skeleton part of the building and then put the walls up and around it, or I mean?
That would be the prototypical way to do it because they build the skeleton first.
Yeah.
But I do it the opposite way. I build the walls first and then put my skeleton inside.
Now, have you ever built any of those where the crane actually, you could move the crane back and forth and, you know, position at different times, you know, inside the building?
In Devin's build, yes, you can move the crane manually back and forth on the tracks that I put in there.
That's cool. That's really
cool.
So
he's able to, you know, he's got 3 bays in that build, and he's able to move that crane over each bay. And it's got 2 hoists on it, so like if you wanted to pick the body up of the locomotive, you'd be able to hook onto the back and hook onto the front and just lift the whole body up.
So Sven's got another question, and the way to save money on doors and windows is to use photo and glue them on a plain sheet of styrene. Is that something you guys do or have tried, or?
I typically do not. I try to get the framework.
So I think you could get away with that at distance. And Sven had built one recently that he had showed off that looked really good. The problem with photos, at least in my personal experience, is the detail is lost when they're up close because you don't have the texture. Like that corrugated material that Vinny's working with is going to cast light in a certain way that you'd never replicate from a photo if it was with foot.
Exactly.
Nice. Speaking of windows, I know that you showed, you know, the manufacturer that you buy windows and window kits. I mean, of course, I imagine when you buy the window kits, they come in different sizes and all that.
Yes.
So to make them, so all you got to do is just cut a spot out, and it makes them recess so that it looks like they've got a molding around them, or.
What I would do is I would take this piece right here, and I would cut the window out to the size that it needs to be cut out. I would place the window frame inside there, and then I would trim the window out with styrene.
Okay, I see.
You know, because, I mean, windows do have trim, doors do have trim, you know, so basically I try and replicate that also.
Now, have you guys ever tried, between you two, have you guys ever tried to do your own window frames by scratch, or do you normally just buy an actual window frame from a manufacturer that supplies them?
Well, if it's available and it's applicable to what you're building, then I would buy it. But again, we're getting back to Shane's building. When I showed him that I was going to put that window that I showed you guys just a few minutes ago, he didn't want window with panes. He wanted a solid piece of glass in there because he said that's the way a modern building is. So I'm going to accommodate him, and I'm going to put a sheet of clear styrene in there. And then what I'll do is I'll put a mullion down the center of it to make it look like it's 2 pieces. That is a sliding glass window.
Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm.
Huh. So you really don't need the window pane per se. Then, if you're going to do the more modern windows, you just have to cut the opening square, glue your clear on the back, and then trim the front with your strips.
Exactly.
Okay.
I've got a non-structural question here. You know, this is a pretty reasonable question, I think. And this is probably to anybody that's on our panel right now. This is not a structural question, but what size styrene should I use to build like a steam locomotive cab? This might be good for Troy as well. And what windows should I use for it? Like a 210-2 fill of my layout and mash the cab, and I can't find replacement cab. So what's scratch build a cab? I guess I read that out right.
Well, I think on a locomotive, probably 20 or 30 thousandths plastic would be good.
I don't know if that's HO scale or what. I imagine if it would be in scale, it would be.
Well, the thickness, like Mike said the other night, once you put it together and you have the edges all covered up, nobody's going to know how thick that plastic is.
Yeah, that's true. True, very true.
You know, another thing I forgot to mention on my corners, I always put angled styrene on the corners of all my buildings, and it kind of completes and makes the building look really nice. And then also, like I mentioned, I do the trim around the windows, but I also, along the bottom edge, I'll put a piece of styrene down there, and I'll paint the concrete to make it look like part of the footing of the building. Gives it just a little bit more detail, and that's another thing we touched on the live show the other night. You could build a building the best you can, but it really comes alive when you start adding the details.
You know, this is a question from me to either you or Geno. Do you guys mess with? And I know on the live show this was brought up a couple times, and I know Ron builds a lot, and I think Mike does too, a lot of scratch build out of wood. Do you two mess with wood very much?
I have never.
I do some.
I've done a couple of kits in wood that actually look pretty good. I think they were Bar Mills kits that I did.
Geno, what about you?
I've built a couple of the wood kits, and I've scratch built a little bit with it. I prefer the styrene, but like I said, it all depends on what type of building you're trying to build.
Yeah.
If you prototype wood frame, you probably, if you want to be authentic with it, you probably need to build out of wood.
You know, I know that Ron was talking about, and so was Mike, talking about the wood warping when you paint it. You know, and I was going to bring up in a question, but I had to run off in the last, I would say 10, 15 minutes left of the show. But, I don't know if you guys could answer this question, but maybe if Mike is watching the show, have you guys ever used, like, instead of using actual paint where it would warp the wood, like chalk or anything like that to keep from the wood warping? I mean, I thought, because every time they said that they would use paint and it would make the wood warp, I was thinking of chalks, of something like that, or even crayon, I mean,
I have not painted it with chalk. Now there's a, if you're familiar with Trackside Scenery, YouTube channel, he has a video on painting with chalk on wood building.
Okay.
It's very good. It's an easy process. I just have not done it. I always use paint and stains. Now, when I stain my wood, I'll weight it down while it dries, and I haven't had any problem with warpage when I do that. I'll paint it, lay it flat, and put a weight on top of it, and when it dries, it's flat.
Because I think
use the chalk and alcohol a lot. That dry paint mix.
Because I've heard a lot of, I've heard that wood, out of all the scratch build or even building a kit, an actual kit out of wood, that wood's the hardest to deal with when it comes to painting and making the color that you want because of warpage. I've always wondered that. You know, I've always wondered if there's other techniques other than actually using a liquid style coloring on wood. You know.
Well, in my experience, where alcohol dries so quickly, if you can hold it level long enough for the alcohol to evaporate real quickly, it doesn't have the tendency that water-based solutions do, because water is going to be with the wood so long that it has plenty of time to separate the material a lot of times or warp it. So alcohol tends to work better for me personally.
Well, see, that's
that's all I use. I don't use any water. I use alcohol, and the working time is so quick it doesn't really have time to warp.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's one thing that, you know, I'm going to be getting ready to build a trestle bridge for my layout, and I want to stain all the wood before I build it, you know, and that's another thing that comes up is when you stain wood, does glue adhere to it very well when you glue it together? I mean, that's, what do you do in that situation?
You know? The stain will not, the glue will not accept the stain.
I mean, how do you stick stuff together? Because I know that a lot of guys, when they do a trestle, they'll get all the wood cut up, and then they'll stain it all, and then they'll put it together. But what do you use to make it stick together?
Well, one important thing, like I mentioned, almost every one of my my Vinny built structures, any place that's got to get glued, you got to tape it.
Yeah.
So
especially true for plastics. Unbelievably true for plastics.
Yeah, I do that, you know, and I stress it every time I do one of my structure builds on video. I always stretch it. Always tape the part that you want and glue. Glue does not stick to paint. And I found that out the hard way. One of my first builds that I did, you know, that parts started falling off because I painted it and then I tried to glue stuff to it, and it just didn't work.
No, and especially with solvent-based glues, the solvent can't get to the plastic to soften the material to actually provide that. In my personal experience, I hand lay track with glue. And in my personal experience, thin stains, especially stains derivative of alcohol, don't affect the gluing of wood material if I'm using a glue like a Plowbond. Now, trying to use wood glue, no, it does absolutely affects it because it stops its ability to penetrate into the wood. But if you use a surface conducting glue like Plowbond or CA, where it doesn't need to penetrate the wood, then you can get away with staining. But you must, in the case of wood, be done with the staining process before you touch it with glue, because you will never get the stain to look right again if it's not 100% stained before you open the glue bottle.
You know,
that super glue will not accept the stain at all.
There's no way to color it to ever make it. You have to hide it. And with wood products, personally, it's like dealing with glass products. Super glue and window material are the antithesis of each other. They frost over every single time for me. I have bad luck with working with super glue and clear material. For me, super glue and wood, especially staining material, doesn't work very well either. I would stick with these, with like Plowbond is the one, or Peel Up, whatever it is my personal favorite.
So I'm glad I brought up Model Man Mike, because he did put an answer in the comment section, you know, in the question. His comment is, warping happens in wood. It can warp out, and as it dries, it can actually settle flat by placing weight on it, just like Geno said. It's nice to use this warpage to your advantage, though, for a roof sag, which that's, you know, I like that. Esmond a sag, it's the best to experiment with. You know, I would say that if you're building an older era layout, you know, let's say in the steam era, I imagine wood would probably be best to use in a steam era than something, you know, in a newer era. I mean, am I right when it comes to that?
Well, things were built to different standard too. You know, everything nowadays, big, huge buildings are built within inch accuracy, and that just was not true of the buildings I'm building in the 50s. They're not square and perfect. So wood's easier to replicate that with.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you'll find that.
Well, strictly speaking, what you're trying to replicate should determine what your original material is. Wood does a better job of emulating wood than anything else, whether that's staining, structural, cosmetic, the fact that wood has a slight curvature to it and doesn't have hard edges. If you're trying to replicate concretes or metal, then styrene, absolutely. You know, there are wood kits out there. Campbell was notorious for building wood bridges that were meant to emulate steel, and they do a horrible job of emulating metals. So,
yeah. Well, you know, where I'm from here in Lewiston, you know, it's just a branch line. It's not anything big like a main line or anything. But back in the this branch line was actually built back in the early or late 1800s, early 1900s, and there's a lot of wooden trestles. There's like 109 wooden trestles that goes up the gorge up onto the prairie out of the valley here. And so I wanted to duplicate one of those trestles on my layout, and the era that I'm in is late, well, probably early 90s to the present day, and those trestles are still in use today, well, except after a year ago, a forest fire went through there and caught one of them on fire and burnt one down. So now that line, they never built it back because it would cost the railroad more money than it's worth. So, but those trestles are still up there, and they still have rail going across them, and there is speeder groups that come up and ride that line up to where that trestle has burned down. And that's why I asked, because they've kept them up all the way up until, you know, the time that that trestle burnt down.
Yeah, 100 years.
We have that model as license thing going on. So if you feel that you want to have a wooden trestle on your layout, you know, who's to say you can't have it, you know?
Well, yeah, exactly. I know that, but I know that there's still some branch lines that are still in use today that have over 100-year-old trestles that are still in use. You know,
yeah, well, they use chemicals like creosote that you know, that absolutely made wood, you know, last 100+ years. The things that environmentalists won't allow us to use today. So we probably won't get the same longevity out of modern wood structures that they did 100 years ago, because they would spray them with stuff that kills everything around.
That, you know, that's a good question, because what are they putting on the tie? I know that they've gone, a lot of main lines have gone to concrete ties, you know, major main lines. But like the branch lines, they're still using wooden ties today. And aren't they still putting creosote on those, or?
No, they're osmose treated, much like what treated decking material is, because creosote was outlawed some years ago. So, I mean, we're still going to have a lot of lines that are creosote. You know, those ties will last like those trestles did. But the new stuff, there's no way the new ties that they're putting down will last like creosote did.
Okay. Good
That's
question.
why you see a lot of the continuous, you know, tie replacement now, more so than you used to. I mean, it's almost continuous, and they just don't last long.
Sven's got a tip here, you know, for everybody that's watching and on the panel, to prevent super glue from fogging effect on glazing or paint areas. Keep it in the fridge. If it's cold, it does not have that effect. Wow, I didn't know that.
Well, that's good to know.
You know, this doesn't have nothing to do with trains, but when I was in RC racing, if you use super glue on your Lexan body and you wanted to paint, because some guys would really, like me, I mean, I had a really cool paint scheme on my bodies. If you used super glue on your Lexan body, paint would not stick to it whatsoever. I mean, I know that. I don't know why super glue. It's like silicone. Silicone. If it says, I mean, nowadays they're making silicone that you can actually paint on.
Mm-hmm.
But if you use super glue on anything on a Lexan body, the paint's not going to adhere to it where that's at.
And I don't use super glue a lot. I have a few certain places where super glue fits the bill. Putting the little metal bridge shoes on plastic. That's one thing that is hard to find a glue that works for metal to plastic. But I tend to stick with solvent-based adhesives and plastic adhesives like 10X as much as possible, just because of things like frosting. I've just had a lot of bad luck out of super glues over the years.
Now, I would think the super glue would work great if you wanted to do a winter scene on something and you wanted frosting around the windows. All of you, Geno, right? Back where you're at, your windows are probably frosted up right now.
Yeah, they're working on it. They're working on it for sure. Now, one thing when it comes to super glue, I started using the Gorilla Glue super glue, and it does.
I saw you bring that up in the live show.
It does not fog up as bad as some of the other stuff since I've been using it. That's one thing I've noticed about it.
I've been using the Loctite super glue, but it still has the fogging effect.
I hadn't run into that with this yet, but hopefully I won't. But and this is we've got a little slower working time too. You don't set right up real quick. You might want to give it a try. I really like it. I think I'll use this as long as it's available.
Hey, dude, there's a guy asking if he needs to set up Skype to get onto this Hangout. Would you please answer him?
Skype. Let's see. I didn't know. Let's see. What is that?
Yeah, it's 6 or 7 down from John Belushi.
Yeah, right there. Hey guys, do I set up Skype to get on here? No.
I don't think so.
As far as I know, you don't have to have Skype for Google Hangouts at all. You just John, the link that I put on Google Plus, I won't put the invite link on until after I've invited our certain panel members. And, just to let everybody know that I will post the link that for this Hangout on Google Plus only. So if you've got to be a member of the YouTube Model Builders community to go to that link, because if you're not a member, you won't be able to find it. So John, if you are a member of the YouTube Model Builders community, that will be, and it will say invite link. You click on that, and it will automatically bring you here. You don't have to have Skype or anything. And another thing too, all of you new users, David Cobb, if you go to YouTube Model Builders channel, David Cobb just got done doing a Hangout presentation on how the Hangouts, how to use the Hangouts. It's a really good short video on how the Hangouts work, and you don't have to have Skype. Skype's a complete different thing than Google Hangout. So all you got to do is to click on that link. So you clicked on the Q&A link to get to where you're at to ask the questions. But if you go to the same place on Google Plus on the community and you click on the invite link, it'll bring you right into this, into the live show itself. But once again, if there's 10 people already in here, it only accepts 10 people at a time. So more or less, it's first come, first serve. Once I've invited all the panel members, and if they don't come in, then there's always room. You guys can see, if you're watching the show right now, you can see that there's only 7 of us in here right now. So there's 3 more spots for for somebody to come in to be on this show. So, but sorry about that, John. I saw your question, but I didn't really pay too much of attention to it. But I apologize for that. And but anyways, yeah, Skype is a complete different thing than Google Hangouts.
And Google Hangouts is just in your browser, and in my experience, works better with Google Chrome. Of course, it's all designed by Google, but you can run it in Firefox or Internet Explorer or Safari. You can just install the add-on that it'll prompt you to install the first time you try to join for any of those other browsers. But Google Chrome, it works incredibly well.
Yeah, I use Google Chrome for anything. You know, my boy is my computer tech, and of course he pushes Google Chrome on me all the time. You know, I don't care if Big Brother is spying on me or not, you know.
Well, they're going to do it either way. Whatever browser you use isn't going to change any of that stuff. And I use Google Chrome for a whole lot of things, except if I'm bad to be doing a whole lot of research, I can get on Google Images or Rel Images and open a tremendous lot of tabs, and Google Chrome starts to fall down for me doing research. So I'll do Firefox for that. But this stuff, Google Chrome's perfect.
So I don't see any of the panel members. Chris, do you got any questions? Jimmy, do you got any questions?
I've got lots, but mine's all pretty basic beginner stuff.
Well, what do you got?
Well, I mean, how do you go about? You got your walls cut, your ceiling panels cut. How do you go deciding where you're going to glue what support pieces to where?
There you go.
Well, for sure you have to have corner supports for your buildings to keep it square. Depending, again, on how wide your building is, if it's really wide, I would put a couple of styrene strips across from the side walls, across the whole top, across the building, and then be able to make it rigid in that fashion. But definitely you need to have your styrene strips in the corners, you know, either using the number 175s or the 188s or anything that's a styrene strip that you feel comfortable using. For my corners, like I say, I use this number 175, which is 100 by 100 styrene strips. They're square strips, and I use those for my corners. Now, if it's a bigger build, like anything like HO or the one that I'm doing right now, I would go to a more stout rod, and you can see how stout these are.
And I am HO scale, so what are those?
These are 125 by 188, and the number is number 188 styrene strips.
So I want to use those on all my for my corners.
On the inside corners, yeah.
Right, and say I got a 20-inch long engine house. You would recommend putting those across the top and the bottom?
At least across the top, and also you would use the 188s along the bottom ridge of the building, which will give you not only a little bit more stability as far as flex goes, but it also gives you more of a gluing surface when you actually glue it down to the foundation.
Gotcha.
Geno, you got any suggestions on there?
And like I said, it depends on what you're building too. You know, you can run some support beams down that wall too. You know, you got your top strip and your bottom strip. If it's a long building, I would probably run some vertical ones, at least 2 or 3 down the side, just to give you some more rigidity.
Exactly. Like the one I'm doing for Shane is 24 inches long. So every 6 inches, I put one of his H-beams in there, and then the H-beams will connect at the top with a truss that goes across the top.
So let's say if the roof is pretty big, would you guys go one piece, or would you do in sectional and then put strips in there to make it more rigid?
You are limited unless you buy the no parking signs, or actually the handicap signs. You're limited to how much of a roof that you can actually build. For instance, again, on Shane's build, his building is 15 3/8 inches wide and 24 inches long, so I actually have to use 2 sheets of plastic to cover the roof.
Okay. Just to let everybody know, Login Locals put up their Hangouts no longer work with, I guess that is Internet Explorer 11. So that's a good point if anybody has Internet or in Explorer 11, it does no longer work. Model Man Mike has a question. What kits do you guys recommend for new builders? Wood kits, plastic, or kits? That would be a good one for Jim. You know, so what do you guys recommend for beginners like Jim? If he's going to start doing some, you know, tinkering around with some scratch builds, I mean, what size building should he start building, and should he do wood or plastic kits?
I think that he should start off with styrene, and he should make a building, you know, just a small building, just make a rectangular building, just to get the idea of how to cut the plastic and how to assemble it. One thing you need to remember, when you do put a building together, if you take your side walls and put them on the inside of the front and rear walls, make sure you do the same on both sides, otherwise your building won't be square. When I build my buildings, I usually, let's see if I can show this. This would be my front wall, and this would be my side wall. So what I would do is I would attach this on the inside of the front wall, and I would do the same thing to the back wall. This building is only going to have 3 walls because it's going to go up against the building. Yeah. But if I did have 4 walls on it, it would go on the inside, or you could put it on the outside, but just make sure you do the same on both sides. Otherwise, your building won't come out square.
What is the most basic tools, Vinny and Geno, for a newbie when they're building structures? What is a good set of basic tools that they would need?
Basically, everything I showed
you need a good
presentation.
Go ahead,
what was that, Geno?
I was gonna, if you just getting started into it, you need a good metal straight edge, a good X-Acto knife, and a good scale ruler. If you've got those 3 things, you can do just about anything.
Okay.
Now, when you guys do your roofs, do you put rafters? Do you build rafters, or do you just I don't know if you're familiar with pole barns or not. Do you construct them like a pole barn, or do you try to actually build rafters?
Well,
depends on how much you can see. If doors are open.
I usually.
Hang on, guys. I'll be right back.
If it's going to be something that's exposed, or you're going to do it. If it's going to be something that's exposed or detailed interior, I would probably go ahead and make my rafters. But if you're not going to see the interior, I usually try to run a support, just one middle support down the middle. It gives me something to glue my roof edges to.
Okay.
You know, Jim, Mike brought up a good point here in one of his questions.
And if you're just starting out and just getting in, I would find me a kit.
Exactly. That was one of the ideas that Mike brought up. He got into. I got one question highlighted right now. A new builder might be a good idea to them to look into the Woodland Scenic City and Industrial Building sets. This includes 15 plastic building made by DPM, great starter sets for new railroaders. And then the other one that he said is before scratch building anything, build kits is a great idea for a beginner. What kits do you recommend for building for beginner to use, Geno? What? I mean, even Vinny, what would?
The picture I've got up now, I did this. This is started out as an IHC Rico station that I modified, changed the roof, put new walls up in it. But I started with that base kit, nothing else, just to use the walls for dimensional measurements and making my templates. And then you can either build your kit and add to it, make it look different, or just use those interior walls as patterns, and then keep them and save them for later builds.
I want to get back to Jim's question about the wraps. You can get this kind of stuff from Plastruct, and it comes in various widths here. But I have not seen anybody actually do a peaked rafter type setup. If you want to do something like that, you'd actually have to scratch build that, and that's kind of like advanced modeling, in my opinion.
So I've got a little tip I'd like to add just to change the subject a little bit. You're going to go beyond kits and start doing a little kit bashing where you take a kit and modify it, and you want to find out if it's going to fit what you're trying to do. What I've done in the past is I've actually taken the side piece, you know, like the side walls of the kit, and I throw them on a photocopier, cut them out on paper, and then put them onto like a foam board. Then you can modify them to exactly get it to fit where you want before you start cutting up your plastic.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually let it stand in as a double until you get a chance to make the kit. It looks pretty good too.
That's a good idea.
And I find foam core one of the most indispensable building materials there are. I use foam core for a tremendous amount of things. Laying wood siding on top of foam core is really good, so you can do exactly what you're saying, Chris, and template your building in foam core and have a really quickly built building for your layout initially, and then just come back and lay a wood siding material on it or whatever you want to do to make it cosmetically appealing later.
Yeah, I saw a YouTube video on someone that was using foam core to build buildings, and it actually looked really, really good.
And you get a huge sheet of it for $3 at Hobby Lobby, 30 by 40 inch sheet of it. So especially for a new builder, you can buy that and cut it up, and you're out $4 for a handful of buildings.
Well, you know what I do is I go to my local, for the foam core, I go to my local framing store where they do frame pictures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they have a lot, I mean, and they'll just give it to you. Sectional scrap pieces. I went to one the other day and I was looking for certain paints, and he goes, "Hey, do you use foam core board?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." Man, he gave me a whole bunch of it.
And I use foam core, so I couldn't go wrong with it. I use foam core. I lay my track on foam core or Homosote on foam core. It gives me a more rigid support for that. I use it to mount all my electronics too. So all the little circuit boards I'm mounting to foam core because it's non-conductive. That's just an indispensable building material.
So I got another question here from Mike. What basic paints do you use for beginners? What kind of paints or would you guys recommend for a beginner like Jim?
Well, I'm kind of stuck on rattle cans right now.
I'd say it's
I would say the same kind of paint you would use on a model car.
I'd say
or
start out with
something.
some acrylics because they're real forgiving.
Well, don't get stuck on any one brand because every brand that I decide I like goes out of business or stops making it. Poly S was incredible, and they stopped making that. And then you get on something, there's always they're changing the stuff on us so much with paint. That's tough.
Well, brand new beginners, I guess, start with the standard stuff that you would put on a model airplane or a model car. You know, if you're painting on plastic, you got testers. They're everywhere.
No, there is a good question on what would be the best manufacturers when building a kit. What would be the best manufacturer for a beginner? I know that there's a lot of them. I know that I've watched quite a few videos from Mike that when he pulls them apart, they've been warped. You've got to modify them a bunch to make them fit correctly. What would be a good manufacturer for a beginner so that they wouldn't have to worry about any of that stuff?
I'm thinking Cornerstone has a bunch of easy builds that you can buy and put together.
Yeah, all of their larger kits have required some modification for me. Their small kits haven't given me much trouble, but all the cornerstone kits that are large, large buildings have required some modification.
What about the Geno? Have you done any of the DPM?
I have, and I like those. You know, and I have not had much trouble with warpage or anything with those kits. They go. Go ahead.
That's what I've seen. I've seen a lot of the DPM kits where, you know, you take them out of the package, you paint them up. There's not much warpage. They go right together. You know, there is quite a few kits. I mean, I've done a few in the past where, boy, you take them out and they're warped. Some of the windows don't line up correctly. There's gaps in, you know, when you put the windows in the slots, the window frames, and all that. And and that's frustrating on a beginner like Jim when he goes to do his first, you know, building kit and put them together. I mean, that's pretty frustrating for a beginner because, you know, they think they get a kit and you put it together, and then they start getting frustrated because nothing's going together correctly. You know, you know, when it comes to putting buildings together, I'll tell you, I'm a straight beginner because I haven't put a lot of kits together. A lot of the buildings that I've put on my older layouts, I've bought at train shows that have already been put together, and then I just scratch them. Yeah. You know, and I paint them the way I want them, and then I put all the detail parts on them. So I figured one day I found a Pike Stuff kit, and I'll tell you what, that's not a beginner's kit to put together.
No, they're not. No.
I mean, that's glad you brought it up because a couple of the buildings I was going to buy to start with were Pike Stuff.
You know, believe it or not, I think Pike Stuff is really good for kit bashing, you know, because I started putting this kit together and the instructions, there really isn't no instructions. And I'm like, I even got on a Hangout with Mike. I says, have you ever put one of these together? And he says, oh yeah, those are really good kits. And I'm like, whatever.
Well, you really can't go wrong with DPM at all. That's the best suggestion to me. They're thick, rigid material, and the ones that I've worked with already have all the moldings, like window moldings and stuff in. So it's just a matter of painting and a real quick assembly. So, and you do get a feeling of getting to build something custom with DPM. That's seriously the best recommendation.
The only thing I can say about the DPM kits are you need to make sure that the edges are square because when they come out of the molds, they're not 100% square. You need to square up the edges.
Yeah, hey, Vinny. Vinny.
Yes.
They do that on purpose. It makes it easier to eject it out of the mold.
Yeah, exactly. But you need to square them up before you put the building together. Otherwise, your building won't. You won't have 100% gluing surface.
Yeah, I seen a video by modeler man Mike where he glued some sandpaper to a piece of wood. And stood his walls up at a 90 degree and sanded them. And I believe it was a DPM kit that he was building when he did that.
His video on doing the little sanding platform that he built is an awesome. If anybody, you know, I mean, I haven't built one yet, but anybody that wants to build kits, I would recommend watching that video and making that sanding block that he made. You know, it's got 2 different grades of sandpaper on it, and you just get a nice straight edge that you can sand them on there and, you know, go to town. I really like that video.
That's been around for a while, the sanding board and all.
But like Jim, he's you know, he's just seen, you know, so I mean, yeah,
it's good. It works great. Also, the comment, everybody's talking about the window glazing, frosting over when they use CA glue and stuff. Don't use CA. Go to Hobby Shop and buy what they call Canopy Goop. It is adhesive glue plastic, and it's made for clear plastic.
Canopy Goop, G-O-O-P.
Yeah.
That you get that in RC Shop.
Yeah, RCs. I've seen it in a few of the hobby shops too. Traymaster Hobby Shop would carry it too. So also on the wood kits, I know I'm going to catch a bunch on this one, but I'll say it anyway. That tractor belt shed I'm doing is scratch built out of wood. I know part 2's coming, I promise. To get through the ice storms, the colds, and everything else.
Excuses.
Yeah, I know it. But anyway, I stained all that wood first. Okay, I used a lot of strips in that thing, and what I did was Fowler Expert has come out with a white glue. It's called Expert Laser, and I use that on there, and it has glued that thing solid on top of the stain. It looks like a white wood glue. And
so you have a long set time?
Not real long.
Okay.
It does dry fairly quick. It'll dry. It takes a little longer than the regular Expert glue, which is a white plastic glue. But this white glue does have a little bit extra working time, probably 15 seconds, maybe 20. The ball comes with a needle applicator too, so you put very small amounts on there. And it does come with a wire, because that needle applicator get a little stopped up, and so you can clear it out. But so far, that has worked really great. None of that wood started popping off yet. And I've been a little rough with that kit, with that building. And, I mean, it's holding together just fine. But
Johnny, what type of stains did you use? Troy wants to know what type of stains you use on that build.
That was the Ike Hunter line.
Okay.
And those stains, I saw them when Atlanta hosted the big train show. They were here, and I was talking with him and his wife. Of course, she won't say exactly how she makes it, but those stains are made with basically alcohol and shoe polish. And she has various different shoe polishes and all that to get the different colors.
Did they produce good color?
Yeah. I was actually I only bought one ball at the train show 'cause I wasn't sure about it, and I've bought another ball of that Agent. That what is it? Micromart and a few others sell. And that would be great for the cross tie, stuff like that. I wasn't too happy with it for a lot of other things, but the Hunter line, I like that color there.
I want to, not to change the subject or anything, but Login Local put a comment in the questions. I put the link to it for the invite of this in the Google Plus Hangout. I want to apologize for that. But I did not push the button to present that on the Google Plus Hangout, because I'm used to Facebook, and once you push enter, it automatically posts the comment, and I did not push the button to comment that. So I apologize for anybody that wanted to come into this presentation, and I know that this is my 5th time doing this, but I'm still trying to work the bugs out of it. So.
Yeah, because I kept going to the lake. I'm sitting there, dude,
where's it at?
Here. Yeah, I was about ready to give you a buzz on the phone. But,
mine was in my email.
Yeah. I wasn't even in my email because I went and checked. And, in fact, that link they sent me in the email wasn't, I had to go through a couple other hoops just to get here.
Oh, well, that's just you, Johnny.
Yeah.
And what is this dud stuff? So, anyways,
my chicken didn't get to the E.
Yeah. So we got another question from Sean Hendricks here. If I actually train bridge is 15 feet tall, what size would it be in HO scale? I mean, that's not really any. I guess that's a structural layout, but
divide by 87. an HO scale.
You got to convert to inches first.
Yeah, a lot of times if it's feet, I divide by 87 times by 12, or times by 12 and then divide by 87, either or.
That's going to be
2.068.
2.068
Yep, feet.
in HO feet.
Yeah, HO feet.
And times by 12 will give you some inches.
Because you got to convert to inches first.
2 inches.
Yeah, basically 2
Yeah,
inches.
basically 2 inches, yeah.
And Vinny or Geno, one of those guys, recommended buying a scale ruler. That is absolutely one tool. If you got 5 tools, buy it. Gotta have it.
Yep.
And there's a calculator app that I use pretty often on my iPhone that has, I think it's by Woodland Scenics or somebody that does those kind of measurements. And especially if I'm out rail fanning something that I want to replicate, I'll throw things in there to kind of give me an idea of what I'm doing. That's a really neat app for doing some scale calculations.
Well, Johnny, we were in a hangout here not too long ago talking about sizes. He put a thing up on how to do a helix to get the actual circumference of the helix, you know, everything to convert it over to what the percentage grade and all that would be.
Yeah,
and it's on that website. They have a lot of conversion charts for all the scales, HO, and I don't remember what it was, you know, but I saved it on my favorites, and I use it a lot because I don't have. That's one thing I haven't, you know, taken this time to spend money on is, you know, like a HO scale ruler or conversion or any of that stuff, because there's so much stuff on the internet that you don't need any of that. I just go to the internet and type it in, and there it is.
Well, and you can do the math real easily with a calculator or an app or whatever else you want to, but having that metal scale ruler that you can lay down across a piece of wood and take the thinking out of it and actually think about it in actual scale feet. You know, I will actually mark it out in scale real size feet with that little HO scale metal ruler.
I don't know if Johnny can see the Q&A.
Yeah, I saw it. No.
Poor Mike.
No, Mike.
No, we talked a lot about his sanding block, and he still has to bring it up, doesn't he?
Yeah. That's okay. I mean, what Mike did is really fantastic because other videos only show using one grit sandpaper on a piece of wood. And Mike split it and put 2 different grits on there, which was really a great idea. And also for JD, yes, that was Hunterline stains that I was talking about.
You know, that's the ones made with shoe polish?
Yeah, shoe polish alcohol. And she had something else in there, too.
That's good. I've been looking for
because Johnny, you know, Mike is beating you up now about your second video on that.
Yeah.
You know? And, you know, I beat him up big time because it's been 8 months since he put a video together. And if anybody has ever seen any of Mike's videos, that's why I beat him up, because out of all the how-to videos, if you have not watched any of Mike's videos, you've got to go at least watch one of them because you're going to be hooked. You'll watch every single one of them. I mean,
he does a great job.
I mean, the detail.
Yeah, we got a biker among us.
Yeah, we got to beat up on Mike a little bit here and there, you know. So.
No, I said you didn't hear the sneeze. You could tell we had a biker among us.
We all gotta love Jim. I'm still threatening one of these days he's going to be at my front door and knocking on the door. You know who it is. Let me in. Well, I think this has been a really good presentation today, guys. I really appreciate Vinny and Geno coming in, and I think our whole panel. Andy, he's been a pretty fairly newcomer to our hangouts, and we've really enjoyed Andy in our hangouts. He has learned a lot from us, and we've learned a lot from him, you know. And another one that I want to bring up is Finn. He's been coming in our hangouts for a couple months now, and he's been a lot of help in our Hangouts. And
Oh yeah.
you know, I know I probably push Hangouts really a lot when it comes to Facebook and Google Plus, but you know, videos is one thing, but you know, a lot of us, I'm normally one that's, I'll set my webcam up and I'm working, and Jim has started working on his layout, and he's got his live camera going, and Chris there, he's been coming into the Hangouts and working on his layout, and you know, honestly, the Hangouts is really where it is right now, because you can come onto the Hangout and ask a question when they're actually doing it live, you know, and so that's the one thing that we've all learned, that, you know, Troy, me, and Dave, and Chris, and Jim now, and, you know, we're all getting together in these Hangouts, and we're learning a lot, and there are a lot of newcomers that are coming in. I mean, I know that Jim's one that has learned a lot from a lot of the stuff that we've been doing, and so, and I really thank everybody that comes in and comes into our Hangouts, and I think these presentations are really starting to work out great, and I want to thank Model Man Mike and the whole YouTube Model Builders team for, you know, coming up with the eMag. If you guys have not gone on and checked a lot of the articles on the eMag, it's a great place to go and read a lot of the blogs that guys have been doing on their layouts and stuff like that. And I know a new one's going to be coming up, Login Loco. He's the one in charge of that. And so, but you know, and another thing too is, if you guys want to put an article together for the eMag, put an article together and let us know, and we'll do whatever we can to get that article onto the eMag. And they're always wanting pictures too of your layout, anything, model railroad related. So, but and I see that there's still quite a few questions coming in.
I got an answer for one of the questions, if that's okay.
Go ahead, Johnny.
JD's won't know about Hunter line. Maybe it won't cause warping. That I couldn't say. The balsa wood that I was using was rather thin and small, so warping wasn't a issue with it. So if you go do a large panel or something like that, I couldn't say. I would say that you would probably still have the same problem, with it about warping, depending on how wet you got the wood. You'd still probably want to put some weight on it to keep it flat and straight.
There you go.
Okay.
Man, Mike. Good one, Johnny. So
I got fussed out last time.
I don't see too many new questions coming in. I know that Model Man Mike, he's spammed me pretty good there. Other than that,
I wonder why. Payback.
Yeah, hi.
Payback for Saturday night.
Yeah.
He's even bribing me to talk his channel up.
Yeah, I know.
See that.
Yeah.
I'd like to tell Jim that if he needs any help on any of the stuff that he's doing, that he could send me a PM through my YouTube channel, and we'll get together and I'll help him out as much as I can.
Well, I appreciate that, Vinny.
Oh, you'll never get any sleep now, Vinny.
And just to let everybody know, I will be updating, if I can get my butt off this couch that you see behind me here. Well, the couch is actually attached to me, during the evenings anymore.
It was a damn
the guys have been giving me a hard time about, so, dude, what are you working on tonight? I see you got a glass of wine in your hand. But, the weather's been nice here, so, I mean, it's not like you guys in the East Coast. You guys have been getting hammered. I mean, I wish I would have some of that, and then it would keep me from going outside, and especially it's not getting dark as early as it has been. But anyways, if there's not any other questions, Chris, did you have a question? I see you standing there in front of your webcam.
I was just going to say, here's an example of a home core mock-up. I also had a question for Vinny. That's going to be about 3 feet long. This was back when we were talking about inside structures. But I can talk to you another night about that. It's going to be a while off, but I have to scratch build that. About 3 feet long.
If you have any questions, just contact me and we'll help you out the best I can.
All right, thanks.
One thing, Log and Local just put this up here so that all you guys would know. You can go to the YouTube modelbuilders.com and click on the yellow EMAG logo, and on the right top of the EMAG menu to find and submit the article. So just like I was saying, if you guys want to put an article together for the EMAG, go to YouTubeModelBuilders.com, and in the right top corner you can see the menu to submit that article. And like I said, I imagine you could probably go there and submit pictures too, if I'm not, mistaken. I could be wrong, but I know that they're looking for pictures of your layout or whatever, anything to do with model railroading. And but if there's no other questions, any other questions from any of the panel members or anybody out there?
I got a comment.
What's that, Johnny?
I'm fixing to shut off, and I'll go start another Hangout since this one's recorded.
Yeah, and just to let you know, Johnny always does a after-show Hangout.
Not always, but, try to. Bye.
See you, Johnny.
See you, John. See you,
I
John.
want to thank everybody for coming on tonight, and I want to thank Geno and Vinny especially. I know that Geno is going to be probably doing a monthly thing, a monthly presentation. Vinny's probably going to be looking at doing something to that sort too. So be looking at that on the website as well. I'm going to probably in the next few weeks or so, I'll try and finalize the schedule all the way up until Memorial Day weekend. Once summer's here, I'll probably disappear, but we're going to still try and keep the presentation going. And so other than that, I think that this has been a pretty good presentation tonight.
Like,
Sorry, I was late.
Appreciate it.
So I want to thank you guys again. I want to thank Geno and Vinny for coming on.
Thanks for having us, dude.
All right, guys. Until the next time.
Thanks, Geno. Thanks, Vinny.
bye. Thanks for the invite.
Okay.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.